All right, you've seen the product. Now it's time to take action. It's all about that miracle food. My man Chakra Doctor has put some of the greatest superfoods on the planet here in one bottle for you. I know we see COVID going crazy and a lot of different things, testing our immune system. This right here is a perfect cleanse and reboot. Great for the immune system and a great anti-inflammatory. Miracle food. Tell them Viral Hip Hop News sent you. Let's go. You know, the first time I remember seeing you on screen was on Mad TV. Was my man Dollar Bill Montgomery, and then I remember seeing you on Jerry Maguire. When did you get into comedy? When did you get into acting?
I started when I was 14, same age as Eddie Murphy.
Okay.
And had been a lot of the clubs in Jersey, Terminal D in Newark, Club 88 in East Orange, the Peppermint Lounge with Bill Bellamy. And then, long story short, Def Jam 16, Showtime at the Apollo 17. Moved out to LA when I was 17. And everything kind of took off from there.
Now, were you doing impressions then too? Or were you, how was your comedy back? Okay. When did you realize you could do that?
Impressions started off as mostly what I was doing. But, when you look at somebody again like Eddie Murphy, one of the things that made him so spectacular was he wasn't a one-trick pony. Yes, he could do impressions, but he also could do material. And, some dudes are either great impressionists, but their material is a little soft, or some dudes have phenomenal material, but their impressions aren't that good. Eddie was able to marry the two, and I watched him and studied him for so long and wanted to make sure, like him, I never came off like a one-trick pony.
Right. Now you got a laundry list of people that you impersonated. Was there ever a time, where somebody got angry with you, for impersonating them and confronted you or something like that?
No, nobody ever really confronted me, but I remember when I did Best Damn Sports Show and Mike Tyson was a guest. And I didn't want to do it because this was Crazy Mike. This ain't the new Feng Shui Mike. So, my man, Michael Irvin, who's one of the biggest sweethearts in the world, man. That dude got such a good heart. He's such a good dude, nothing but love. And he showed me so much love, but Mike kept egging me on that day to do Mike in front of Mike. And I kept trying to tell Mike Irvin, hey, shut the fuck up. This nigga eats kids, or he threatens to. So Mike just kept, putting the spotlight on me. And finally I did it. And Mike kind of received it, but he kind of didn't. It was that weird moment where it was like he felt like he was next to a lion that was unchained. So, I wanted to choose my steps wisely because I didn't want him to react the wrong way.
Was there a time with DMX you met him? He had a problem with it?
Yeah, Jay-Z was doing a concert at the Staples Center. And I remember around that time I had produced my first comedy album. And I went over to the Staples Center because actually Method Man and Redman was a guest on Mad TV that week. So they were also performing on the bill with him. And so they invited me to come with them to hang out. So, everybody's backstage. Busta Rhymes, Snoop, Meth, Red. And I got a chance to see DMX. And I told him about the CD. I did crank calls. I did his voice. So he was, long story short, was like, yo, dog, let me holler at you. I heard some things about my CD, about my voice. And so we all went into the locker room where there was really only one way in and one way out. So it's just me and him at first, and about 50 niggas came in there afterwards and surrounded us in a circle and slammed the door. So X was like, I was trying to get him to promote the CD like I was getting everybody else holding it up, saying, yo, Aries Spears is the guy, support him. And X was like, yo, dog, come to my hotel tomorrow. Let me hear it. If it's good, If it's not, So, that's the moment.
Dope. Shit. Mad TV. Talk about how you got on that show.
I'm going to try to simplify this. Back in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, Hollywood used to do this thing where they would give you a development deal if they wanted to lock you up for a year and take you off the market to potentially do a show with you. And when I went to LA, my manager at the time was Norm Nixon, Debbie Allen's husband. And of course, she was the showrunner for A Different World. and some other sitcoms that she would direct. And I remember, I think she was doing an episode of Fresh Prince, and D.L. Hewley was the warm-up. So I went over, and D.L. saw that I was there, and he let me do like 5 minutes of stand-up, or like a little quick set in front of the audience. And I had crushed it so bad that, word got around town quickly about this hot young kid who's in town, who's incredible, and this and this. So for the first 5 years of being in LA, I was in development hell. I just basically went from development deal to development deal, and which is to say I was taking off the market every year for 5 years straight. I made a lot of money, but I didn't produce anything. But somewhere in that, I remember I had auditioned for Mad TV, and they wanted me the first year, but I was locked into a deal with Aaron Spelling to do a show headed going past the pilot called Crosstown Traffic. It was like a mod squad. That never really came to fruition, but the president of the network at the time was such a big fan of mine. When my deal was about to expire with Fox, he basically said, look, I know we didn't develop nothing for you, but I really like your talent. I don't want you to go nowhere else. You auditioned for Mad TV 3 years ago, and they wanted you then, so why don't you just jump on that show now? And that's how I got Mad TV in its third season.
Fox and other networks were real prominent in broadcasting good black television. Now, Mad TV was a good mix of every ethnicity, but for the most part, I know the stars I watched was black. And then you look at Martin, then you look at Fresh Prince and Family Matters, and you just run through networks, and it was nothing but black broadcasting. What do you think happened to that? I mean, it's a small resurgence coming back now, but we had a real empty gap at one point, and it doesn't seem like it's ever been the same.
Yeah. CNN did this run of these eras of 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. And, with each segment, they talked about everything from what was going on at that time politically, musically, and in television. And I remember when they covered that era of the 90s. And I can't remember her name, but one African-American, one black chick was basically saying how at a certain point in time, Fox, WB, UPN, they all took as much as they could in terms of utilizing black talent to help grow their networks. And then once those shows reached a certain level, or those networks reached a certain level where they didn't really need those black shows anymore, as soon as they dipped in the ratings, they got rid of us. Which is kind of how it's always been historically for us.
What's good, man? This is Sam Ant, CEO of Viral Hip Hop News. Listen, I appreciate each and every one of y'all who are going to check out this documentary. Shout out to my man Lonnie Fresh. Do me a favor, go to YouTube right now. Go subscribe to Viral Hip Hop News, one of the best hip hop platforms out here right now. We also have The Hub, Hip Hop News Uncensored, of course, the podcast, the baddest podcast out, the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. We drop 7 days a week, doing this thing 100% independent.
There was not one day that I was at work on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that I wished I was somewhere else.
Now, let's talk about the Players Club, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's like your first major role in a movie, right?
Taking over the game. Sincerely appreciate each and every one of y'all. You can grab merch on the YouTube site. You can talk to me on there and much more. Sam Ant, CEO of Viral Hip Hop News. Appreciate each and every one of y'all.
Oh God, you the man, Cass. I spit white like a clan mask, and I'm a hustler.